Got some fun things to try today. I did do a bit of preparation. I realized there was a lot of really interesting stuff going on with the last stream, and I wanted to expand on that a little bit and take advantage of some of the ideas. So I wrote some notes down and kind of want to share some of the ideas behind this. I had this idea to, and we'll test that out today, but had this idea to basically have this be running in sync with my project. So I could sync it up using various devices, but since the plan is to just keep it synced up and then sample as I go, I'm not gonna take the time to try to figure out how to do that. So sorry, I keep looking for particular here. So basically what I'm doing is just setting this up to sync. And I think I want it to play, well, first of all, I'm gonna mute this. So now it's synced up in the background. And the goal was, I have these really cool patterns in here. I'm gonna stop that clap too. I have these really cool patterns in here in this machine, but I'm just like struggling with using them properly. And I thought one fun way to do that would be to just have this running in the background and then sample pieces of it. Especially since this pattern, I can generate patterns that won't repeat. Then I could start working on basically designing stuff that sounds really cool, and then when I want something new, I could just resample it, and then I'd have something new to work with. So let's just test that out, see what happens. So the general blueprint of this is we take a 4-bar loop, or sorry, we're just going to go with 1 bar right now. And this is going to be recording from CD. And it's going to snap to the bar when I hit record. So essentially what I want to do is make sure everything is set up here properly. And then we can also bring this stuff back in. And then we want to set this to 16 as well. Hello everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. So, what's happening in the background here is I'm basically playing something that is not bound to like a 4-bar, like a single 16 step, 4/4 beat. This thing that's playing in the background is way more like fluid in terms of rhythm. And I can actually, I'll switch to a more complex one that you can kind of hear the difference. Right, so, but the key is I have this muted, and it's kind of just generating stuff in the background. And the idea is maybe I can sample stuff and then have it play out. So I'm going to sample a bar of whatever's playing. You hear how it switched? That's basically every time I record this, I get a new one. And this is like, you know, and you'll notice I'm taking great care not to stop either of these. So they're both playing in the background while I'm talking. Actually, I probably don't even need to do that. I can just bring it down on the mixer. So there are some ways that you can use this. You know, I can make it glue a little better by adding some delay to it. Oh yeah, whoops. So we're gonna go with a slightly different pattern now, and I'll guide you through that right now. And I should mention that before this stream today, I made these little patterns here as kind of like variations on each other because I thought it'd be fun to mix them up and modify them. So right now I'm going to take this single pattern and I'm going to make it way less predictable. So I'm going to do that by duplicating this pattern. So now this is the same exact pattern, but now it's on A5 instead of A4. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to adjust the MIDI note transpose plus or minus by a bunch of values here. And what that means is now I'm going to get way more variation on these notes specifically, plus or minus this amount. And then I'll also take the probability of triggering, and I will give these sort of in-between notes a chance of firing. And then I'm going to give them some notes. So, just a sec. Cool. So basically I'm programming myself a little generative melody. Sorry, I'm just trying to find where I had adjust the right, the vibrato, turning that off. Yeah, so if you guys missed my last stream, I was playing with this patterning app quite a bit, because what you can do is you can send, it's not just a sequencer. Right now I'm sequencing notes into my Moog app, but I'm also sequencing CC commands. So whatever knobs there are on here can now be controlled using this sequencer. So for example, I have filter mapped to number 3. CC3 is now a filter, so I can actually draw so it's basically following that to tell what the filter amount is going to be, and you can actually see it reflected here. So I'm going to turn delay off because I have delay in my sample section already. And so once I have this put together, I'm going to mute the direct in, which is at track 7. Right? And I'm going to see how it feels to only control the sample version of what's coming out here. And the way I do that is by bringing this up. And then just, I start sampling stuff. And I might actually change this to a 2-bar phrase just so we get a little bit more variation between the two. We're going to set this to 32. Cool. And, you know, one thing that you could try doing, which I've never actually tried before, but it's a combination of something that you might have seen me do, which is to take the LFO that controls the slice point. And if we're not going to, provided we're not going to change the tempo of the track, like at all, which is kind of the goal here, I can have this sample, this buffer, this record buffer be basically mapped to this amount of slices. And then all I have to do from there is take this, set it up at 17, and it's going to play the sample exactly the same way, except now it's in slice form, which gives me a bit more control over how to manipulate it without, you know, going too far into like key locking different slices and stuff. I might have to adjust this. Oh right, it was a 1-bar phrase, so hold on. So we're gonna just so I can hear where the That's pretty close. So now remuting that. I was hoping it could get through all. I think what I need to do is set it to. Oh, there we go. One thing I'm noticing is that when I slice the sample, it starts to have some issues. If I turn off slicing and I just if I play it without the LFO, then I think I'll have more success. I think it's because the slicing is getting ahead of the sample being re-recorded. So skip that. We're gonna go straight to just triggering the sample on its own. And I'm also going to save that part and then sync this up again. There we go. And I'm also going to move this to a different pattern. I think I did something wrong. Oh, I see. 3, 4, 5. It sounds like it's in a different time signature. Which, it would honestly, like, that's the thing, is it feels good in, like, whatever this is. 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But I'm not going to bother with that time signature on the machine like this. So we're just going to sample it and see what we get. Yeah, and it's actually more difficult if you're working with a sample that actually sounds like it follows a particular time signature. So if we were to just go here and maybe adjust it so it rotates, that'll probably solve that. And then also give it some some MIDI to transpose properties. So we should get a little bit more variation this time around. And let me bring this up just a little bit higher so we're not competing for bass. And then there's one last thing that I want to mention I have today, which is I found, speaking of Clark, which I've been mentioning a lot over the last few weeks, I found a bunch of samples that he released like years ago, maybe 4 years ago, of just like old stuff that he had sitting around, and I was like, oh shit. That's awesome. So I uploaded that onto the Octatrack, and I'm just kind of gonna use that as another sort of thing to build on. So I have this bassline creator here, and I have those samples. So those are gonna be kind of the main building blocks today. And the thing is too, I mean, like, something interesting about this pattern is maybe trying to decide if maybe like we use these two to record from here and like build on it. Yeah, because like if I was to go here and then pitch this up a fifth, let's see how that sounds. Oh, this needs to be recording one. Cool. Yeah, so some things that are kind of like going on in my head, I'm thinking about quick muting, which I haven't really delved into a ton, but I think this is a good opportunity to start thinking about whether I would like to do that. because that's, I think, the ticket to a lot of some of the issues that I'm running into, where I'm like, oh man, I don't have enough control over what's going on because I only have 2 fingers and I can only turn 2 knobs at once. So I think what we're gonna do next is we're gonna treat these 2 like they're separate little modules of sound, and I'm gonna record them separately. Give myself 2 bars for this as well. And then just kind of let this be the idea generator. Hey, the Fader Fox is controlling the octatrack. So I basically have, this is volume. This is not level, this is volume on tracks 1 through 6. This is low cut, this is high cut, or this is, I mean, bass and width. And then this is release on the trigs, which is like my, it's kind of a toss-up whether that's like the most useful thing, but that's what I'm using right now. So the iPad is going into track 7 in case I want to hear it. But I'm leaving it unaffected because I want to sample it into tracks 1 and 2 and hear them, you know, 2 bars after they've been recorded or whatever. So I'm using these as like actually where I start hearing what's coming out of here. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how best to move on to this next section. Oh, it's switching between the 2. God damn it. Basically, I'm trying to record samples from the same source, the iPad, into tracks 1 and 2, and then kind of crossfade them into each other. But I think I didn't record anything on this one yet. Let me see. Oh, I do have something. Then why isn't it playing? Oh, because it's muted. And then the sort of the last piece of the puzzle here, so to speak. Well, actually, yeah. So the last piece of the puzzle, in my mind, is, and in addition, I should probably recap real quick. Today, I'm thinking of using this as a sample source for tracks 1 and 2, which I already mentioned. I'm also sort of combing these stems that I found online from Clark's album Death Magnetic, or not Death Magnetic, it's a Metallica album, Death Peak. And I found that online they had just like a zip file of all this stuff, so I'm kind of like using that as an inspiration source today. And then on top of that, what was the thing I was going to mention? Oh yeah, quick muting. It's something I don't use, but I've seen people use it really effectively on other videos, and I will link some people that I've been watching. But I'm thinking that might be the solution potentially for some of my woes regarding structuring. It's like if I get pretty comfortable with where everything is and I can mute it, I don't have to use these knobs to fade in things every single time. One last thing I was going to mention. Well, I'm just going to add a bass line here. Let's see. Right. Oh yeah, and I had forgotten to map my vocal kick directly into the Octatrack, because I was hoping to do that today, but I'm not. There we go. And then let's take these and start bringing them in. Because one thing that I think I need to do is just get comfortable with the relationship between muting and volume on this thing. Because I do like being able to fade stuff in, but I oftentimes will be like, why isn't it working? And it's muted. So I think I just need to get used to it. So pretending like these are the only elements that I have to work with right now. I have to be careful not to overwhelm what's going on, and also just like get comfortable with where everything is. So, for those of you who are having some issues understanding what's going on, these are set to quick mute, and I have them set so that my kick is here. My rhythm above that is right on 5, baseline. And this is subject to change. I'm considering moving my bass because here's another rhythm section. Welcome everyone, by the way. Welcome Rustic. Yeah, and we're basically working with a set today that's all in A minor, just to simplify things a little bit, because I want to have patterning just give me different melodies, and then I sample them into a 2-bar loop on either track 1 or 2, and then I just kind of crossfade them into each other, and use these to basically affect the energy of the set. And trying to keep things simple, because there's certain things that I still don't have like completely down, like for example, just muting stuff. So like if I wanted to be able to quickly do that, this is a skill that just takes practice, and this is one of the things that I just haven't touched on yet. So we're gonna play with that a bit today, and just kind of use tracks 1 and 2 as an ongoing melody generator. And the key to that is making sure that this is synced up every time I press play. So let's mute these real quick. That's perfect. Cool. Now we can mute this hi-hat. Now I can sample that. 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Oops, pressed the wrong button. And it's, you know, pretty subtle there, so maybe we bring this up a bit. And then maybe we record something with a higher filter on the next one. And then I'm just going to record something on this track 1 again. I have no idea what these things sound like, by the way. And then we can start affecting things like the pitch. Oops. Oops. Ah. I think what I need to do is sub this for loops that I know a little better, because if this is going to be kind of melodic and there's other things going on, then I should probably just stick to some rhythms that maybe we can go into. "101 free techno loops." Okay, fine. I hope these are good. Oh man. If my goal was to sound like Clark, I think I'm well on my way. Well, at least for this slice of time. And I'm gonna save this because this just... And see, one thing that's kind of interesting about this is, what if I want to change something about this melody? I can basically copy this over and move this up to, see, higher. Well, let's hope it doesn't change from the other ones too. No, it did. Okay, well, I mean, it's not the biggest deal, you know. I think it's just a matter of moving this around, which, you know, it isn't super intuitive, and that's where I think Fugue Machine is really beneficial for this kind of thing, because you can have a pattern in front of you, and then there's a simple fader that just chooses where the pitch is, but it also maps it to the scale that you choose. This I enjoy because I can actually pick exactly which notes it's playing, which I think is amazing. And that's a lot more control than Fugue Machine will give you over the notes. It doesn't quantize that way. You just have to pick one of the scales they give you. But there's a lot of options for scales, so now if we were to sample this, it should be higher. Sounds like a cello. Really makes me want to get one of these things. Mini Moog, geez, sounds great. But mean, the iPad app sounds really good too. I'm wondering why that filter isn't. Oh, it's because I have it automated somewhere. I mapped it to CC4, so let's just clear that. And once I start mapping oscillator 2 to stuff, whew, it's gonna be crazy. I'm gonna go ahead and create the hotkeys for that while I'm here. Map CCs. We have 3, 4, 9, 7, and 71. So let's set oscillator 2 to 5, and oscillator 3 to, well, I only need 1 for now. Maybe external volume. I've really enjoyed the way that external volume adjusts the sound, the tone of it. Tone being a very loose word here. Timbre? Is that a stuffier word? Oh man, I wish I had recorded that. I think I'm just gonna do 64 here because all of these are gold. Shit. shit. The hope was to bring that back into kick territory, but still juggling things. Longer. I think I like the 2 bars. It's just a little bit more manageable. That one's great. Okay. That was cool. Let's keep going. And I'm just going to do one of those things that I hear Clark do from time to time where he's just like, I have done too many things and I need to dial it back a bit. And it just kind of goes into this little, like, tiny little beat. And I hope I can pull it off. I don't like that one. This needs to not be 64 steps. Man, really enjoying where this is going though. 16, why not? It needs to be longer than that. Shit, it's off again. Cool. Shit, it should be actually, this is the one that needs to be changed. 16, okay. Oh, and I'm gonna add, this to here. Oh wait, it's actually over here, isn't it? 16, 3. Okay, so. interesting. Why did that happen? Wow, so there's a lot going on here, and I'm still trying to navigate it as I'm doing it. But if I'm correct in my hypothesis, the engine that's kind of running this whole operation right now is this relationship between these two tracks, which can be, record buffers on this thing like I've been describing, where you have something that's just generating different melodies and then you just jump between them. Or, you pre-select these, which to me, I'm still like on the fence about it because I really like the results, but then the moment I try to capture it into something that I can put onto the computer and edit, the whole thing just falls apart. I'm just like, oh man, like the reverb is baked in and there's something glitchy about this thing. And I just get super nitpicky about how it sounds. So I've been debating whether I should just treat it like they're record buffers and record them in every single time differently. Or like I was saying, I can just, I saved these samples already, so I can throw them in here and be like, okay, those last two were really cool. So let's go into this project. I think it's called Vocal Kick. I have no idea how this thing gets named, but it seems like it's wrong. So, that's one of them. And then the other one, that one. So, one way of treating this could be to just move through the project like this, and to just say, okay, here we are, and this is where I was last time actually, and this will kind of be a helpful reference. I did the same thing last session, where I had ideas that I was coming up with on here, and I saved them into here. Right, so basically patterns 1 through 4 are all sharing the same part 1. Oops, I shouldn't do that. So part 1 is this first section. Part 2 is when it starts to get into that heavier territory. But up until then, I'm treating this like I'm not going to move any of these things around. So in that case, 2 tracks for the melodies. Track 1, track 2. Track 2 needs to be triggered because I think there's something wrong with right here. That. So now if these are set to not loop, then they should just let play out, and then once I switch to the next pattern, they'll stop and then the next one will start. this needs to stop. This rhythm that kind of bleeds out into the next section, I need to set it to start silent. And then I, you know, yeah, so in this case, one thing that I think should actually be taken into consideration is I should probably decide which of the two melodies is going to be the sort of the main focus of the track right from the get-go on each pattern, on a per pattern basis, because that's kind of what I did with these four. And with this one, I don't want to launch them both at the same time. I think what would be beneficial would be to decide what it sounds like in that section and then just stick with that. So like, for example, this one's clearly the main event, and this one is going to be cool. I didn't realize I had done that. So then in that case, maybe I take this one out in this pattern. And actually, you know, I need to switch this from record buffer to this thing. Shit. These two. Where are we? Okay, here. And I think I need to flip them actually, so what I'm going to do is take this. Hold on. No, I was looking for... looking for a different pattern. Oh yeah, that's what it was. Because I was wondering if it would transition into from 4 more smoothly than 5. Maybe reverb goes down too? Well, the thing is, send is such a powerful thing that it is... Oh, actually, it's not even set to send. Huh. Oh, and this is set to the record buffer still. Oops. Ba-da-dum. Let's set that right, and then let's set this to 22. And then this is maybe I set this to 0 and also that it's set to mix. Maybe that'll... It's a little too abrupt at that point. Poopy. So maybe if I reduce the mix, you're gonna hear it. It's gonna be like super obvious. So maybe I reduce the time. It needs to be smaller. That's kind of fun. Smaller. Maybe I might as well set this to 16. No! No, what have I done? I need to set this. Shit. I thought I was on a different pattern. I need to set this to 32. And this also to 32. Geez, okay. 32. Set number 9 to 16. We'll figure it out. In fact, you know what I like the most, and unfortunately this is again an influence of Clark's, but that pattern right there is my favorite thing to bring in during that point. So actually what I should do is take this part, maybe just take the whole pattern and copy it over here, and then remove all the elements that I don't want to be playing. Like the bass line. And then p-lock any changes that I want. But then also set this to 32. No. It always, I always forget that. Okay, so if you have something selected and you go like that, or if you're playing it and you switch and you press stop, it switches to the next one. So I always forget to, I start modifying the one that I've switched to. Yeah, honestly, I like enhancement the most for this because it just sounds so full without overcrowding things too much. Still gives me room. So like my only gripe about this is that I'm way more into patterns 5 through 8 than I am into 1 through 4. I feel like this is kind of like a, and obviously these are like two people that I really love, but it's like Nicholas Jar versus Clark / like Randomer and some of that other stuff. Like this stuff is really great, but they just don't belong in the same mix. So that's something that I've been kind of struggling with these two patterns right now. I mean, that sounds fairly good. I think honestly, maybe it's just pattern 4 that, yeah, it's too glitchy. That's what it is. But I was hoping I could extend the mileage of a sample by giving it some, by moving it around and giving it a new pattern of some sort. But it gives it a certain quality that takes it a bit out of the world of like what this creates. And I think that's also what I've been kind of struggling with when it comes to sampling this machine, sampling this particular combination of items like the Moog and the patterning, is that there's something very magical about the generativeness of it that you only really get if you're listening to it over like the course of, a longer period of time. And you can't just get it in one loop. And the more you listen to one loop exactly the same, the more you start to lose focus. So I do think that there's something helpful about having it be running in the background. And I think also what I want to do next after I'm going to spend the next like 20 minutes doing this, but I'm just going to play with what we had talked about at the beginning of the set, which is just having it run and just playing these two tracks off of each other and not saving them, maybe saving them, but not using that as a way to structure, but just using it as a way to you know, create an indefinite DJ set of sorts. But this is still also like very like a good practice for, you know, building muscle memory with these mutes, which I still haven't figured out because I fairly recently decided to put these tracks here because of the fader fox. You know, kick being track 6 is really helpful to me because it's at the very bottom. And then one thing I might change is put the bass line here so that these 3 are rhythm and these 3 are notes. This is where it starts to feel like it's in a different world. Okay, so let's say that's pretty much finished, and I'm gonna take this and copy it over to pattern bank 3. That actually sounds really cool, and I'm gonna move to bank 4. I might as well move to bank 5 so we don't step on anything. Gonna paste the part here. And then we're just going to start building out a little bass camp with our kicks. All right, so the main point of this, the next, I guess, 15 minutes or so, is going to be to juggle these 3 tracks. Track 3 is going to be these rhythmic sections, and I'm actually going to create a new one so that I don't step on the pre-saved banks, or sorry, parts of the previous pattern. I'm going to grab, I guess, the techno loops thing. Seems to be working pretty well, actually. I'm pleasantly surprised. You know, a sample pack that's called 101 free techno samples doesn't always seem the most promising, but now. Not as huge a fan of that. These two need to be activated. Oh, right. Whoops. I made record buffers here. Shit. Oh, and then I paused it. Okay, hold on. Okay, so I need to set this to 32 because that's why it's not playing the full 2 bars. still figuring out how to work these two together. Now I'm going to change the pitch in the background. I have no idea how it's going to sound. Going back to the tried and true. The rave beats. I actually really like that melody. How do I acquire that melody? Can I cue these two and tell it to record to... Let's try recording it to record buffer 3 because I don't want to fuck up the samples. So let's see if this works. 32, snap to 16. That should, in theory, be it. So let's copy this to part 2. Copy this pattern to pattern 2. And then switch this to part 2. And then switch this to record buffer 3. Oh, it's already stopped. Whoops. No! So it did record everything in the background. Poopy. then we're gonna switch to 64 steps here. Cool. So that's my break now. So when I want to do some kind of a break, I can quick mute instead of having to turn knobs. That's a lot easier. Beautiful. Honestly, I could probably just tell this to play at the end here. I don't even know. I'm not making anything like pattern-wise. I'm just going to set this to first, and then I'm going to tell it to ping pong. And that is that for today. Thanks for hanging out. I had a lot of fun. I think it really did pay off to do some preparation beforehand, to write some things down, take some notes about what I wanted to do. Still a little messy, but that's definitely pretty doable. It takes a bit of the pressure off of me coming up with ideas all the time if I program something beforehand, almost like a modular rig. And I've been tempted, but I am still holding strong for now. For now, this is doing plenty for me. So as long as I can keep it synced up in the beginning, we're good to go. Anyway, thanks again for hanging out. I was really proud of this one. I'm glad you guys, those of you who stuck around, I'm glad you could experience that with me. And hope you have a great weekend, great rest of your day. And I'll see y'all on Monday afternoon, 2 p.m. PST. Cheers.